You know, I am actually very satisfied with this service. So the intention behind the service and how we designed the service and how it's now running was to be very streamlined. So what I was very keen not to happen was for women who were considering accessing the service to have to go and be referred and explain themselves to more than one person to go through, and lots of different moving parts or lots of different people involved in the service. So I was very keen for it to be a single telephone number, and then from there into the service straight away, with lots of steps and lots of safeguards and lots of opportunities for women to consider how they're feeling and what they're thinking and their decision-making process based on good advice. And so far the feedback we've had has been absolutely excellent. In many ways, these kind of sensitive services, I like them to run kind of as quietly as they can, but really with less input. So from this perspective, this is a service that I'm very, very pleased with.
So why has the GHA felt the need to send a press release saying that the service is not aimed to encourage abortion?
So there was some media articles talking about the service in general, and we had some statements that came out from pro-life, who essentially were asking about the service as well, as they should, because they're raising the question. We were very much intimately involved with pro-choice and pro-life at the time when we were designing the service. Always, all along, for many, many years, this is a subject that we've been considering. And if you remember, 3 or 4 years ago, if I have my dates correct, we actually had almost like a public consultation about it, quite a heated one in actual fact, which I wasn't present at, but I remember watching it very closely. The idea is that the service is there not to encourage women to have an abortion, but to encourage women to consider all of their options. What we must remember is that in some cases, it will be a very clear and active decision by a woman to have to seek an abortion. Very, very clear. But in many cases, the decision is not clear at the point when they phone that telephone number and start to seek advice. And we have to really, really, really try and put ourselves in the place of a woman who's considering that. It must be an incredibly difficult decision, even for those who are very clear. And there are so many factors that sit behind that potential decision-making process, and some women may very well feel that that's their only option. So the statement was very deliberate, so that we're not here to encourage women to have abortion. We're actually here to say we have a confidential service where you can explore all of the options, and we will offer you as much support as we can to consider why you are thinking about this. So it may be that the decision is because you found yourself in a position where you're pregnant, but you can't tell your family, for example, or maybe you can't tell your partner, or you're worried about your job or your future, or where are you going to live, and all of these very, very difficult decisions that may very well go, this is the only solution I have. And I would hate to think that that would be the only solution. So we're not there to encourage, we are there to provide as many options, solutions, and as much support as we can. And in many cases, a woman might come to us and say, thank you very much, I've considered all my options, I still want to go ahead. But there have been, since we published the statistics, 4 women who accessed the service and decided, actually, thank you very much, but you've supported me, you've helped me, and I'm going to go ahead with my pregnancy, which is really good.
Well, despite the campaign being won on the back of the banner of No More Shame, there was a bit of an uproar on social media with people thinking that the GHA should not have provided this information.
So we were asked a question about the numbers, and remember that the statistics that we provided were completely anonymous. It was just simply a case of giving an idea of how the service has been used so far. In terms of the No More Shame, you're absolutely right. But we are very early on. We're less than 6 months really since we had the referendum. In fact, we're just over 6 months since the referendum, and only a handful of months really since the service properly started in earnest. And so very much the idea of No More Shame is something that will come as we change the mindset. And I'm sure, from the perspective of women who are considering it, and actually from the general community, we have to come to a point where people start to trust the service and trust that it is confidential and that it is supportive and that we're not here simply to just encourage abortion. So, let's put this in context. There are many, many women who have actually faced that decision and have actually accessed an abortion service, perhaps over the border in Spain or even in the UK. If they go to a private clinic, let's really be honest here, a private clinic is there primarily to provide a single service, and that service is, in this case, an abortion. Whereas we are not here to provide just the abortion, we're here to provide the support. So the social media uproar, I think, is because it's still very early days. We are not at a point, I don't think, with just a few months into the service where there's full community understanding or trust of the service, because we need to be running for a while for women really to believe and to see that we can be trusted and confidential and supportive. And it's very much been in the community that abortion has been something that has been a very sensitive and very difficult and emotive subject. And I think that's why there was an uproar on social media, or a discussion on social media, active discussion, I think.
Were you surprised by that reaction? Because I must say, I personally was surprised, because people were wondering why it was news when actually it's the only service that has required a referendum, and the GHA does give stats on cancer figures, or when we have. So were you surprised by the reaction?
No, not really. I think it's, as I say, I think it's because it's early days. I think it's just such a very, very sensitive topic. And evokes emotions in people very clearly one way or the other. As a result, and people can be very passionate, whichever stance they're taking, whether they would be pro-life or pro-choice or just somewhere in between, considering all, people are very passionate about this particular topic because it is quite a sensitive thing. I actually thought the discussion was, I wasn't surprised by the passion within the discussion. I wasn't surprised by it, but I was quite glad to see it in some ways, because it is a point of discussion, and I think until we openly discuss, until we are more open about it, I don't think we can move towards a no more shame or an acceptance of it without people being open and honest and being open with their views, but also listening to the views of others. So we must accept the fact that whatever our view is, one way or the other, no matter how gentle or extreme that view, we must accept the fact that other people have other views as well.
Doctor, you mentioned trust in the service. Are you absolutely satisfied that the duty of care is being fulfilled?
So the duty of care, the question about the duty of care has come about because of the process that we have. So in terms of the trust and the trust in the confidentiality of the service, I'm absolutely satisfied. So we have a single telephone number, which is the point of entry into the service. A woman is considering this as an option, or a service user, may even be a couple, and it's not necessarily just a woman on her own who's considering accessing this service, then goes straight into a general gynecology clinic. And then they are given a particular series of they're counselled, they're discussed, their circumstances are talked about, and how they end up being where they are and why they are in that position of feeling like this is the decision they want to make. We offer women counselling. We don't force it on anyone. We offer it, but we accept the fact that some women may not want to have it, and we offer it before, and actually in some cases we offer it afterwards as well. In some cases women have taken that up afterwards as well, just to talk through their feelings afterwards. And we also offer a cool-off period. So in terms of the duty of care, where that specific question came from is related to the medical abortion. So essentially the bit from taking the first tablet, which we take in the clinic, to the second treatment 48 hours later, which we do again in the hospital. Now, if you compare this to somewhere like the UK, where actually women can take both of those two treatments, those 48-hour treatments, at home So we do it, our duty of care is in the hospital. So we do the first one, and then the second one 48 hours later in the day surgical unit. Now the reason for that is because it can cause bleeding, it can cause cramping, and it can cause women to feel unwell. But it doesn't mean that the moment that tablet is used, that the process is going to happen straight away. And it can take up to 24 hours sometimes to have what can, in many cases, be like a very, very, very heavy period. So we give women the option to stay while we're waiting to see whether they get any cramps and any pain, and we look after them, we counsel them, and we support them as best we can, but we can't keep them indefinitely. And many women, in fact all of them, at some point say, you know what, I'd like to go home now. I want to go to my comfort, I want to go to my sofa, I want to have a cup of tea, I want to do all of those things. So part of that duty care question was, why are we allowing women to go home and have abortions at home? We are not doing that. We're providing the medical abortions in the hospital, but sometimes the process can take a little bit longer. But we're always there to support them. So sometimes that can happen when they've gone home, but we try to avoid that where we can.